Good evening, Monadnock Region, and welcome to Go Mo Tonight, the Monadnock Region's only locally focused weekly comedy podcast. I'm your host here in the Space Lounge, Chris DiLoretto, here with my co-hosts,
Zoe Rotenheinsmith
and Sam Abbott.
And we are coming at you recording on the 18th of August, 2022. The summer has changed. It is getting darker outside. It's getting chillier at night. I've got a window open over here and there's cool air coming through. I'm still wearing a summer shirt because I'm not really ready to let go. But, here we are. We've been off for a couple of weeks because we were both prepping for and putting on the night market. We didn't want you to listen to an episode last week. We wanted you to come out on Friday night, and many of you did, to the night market, to our Space Lounge Live on the what I like to call the library patio, but which I was informed very strenuously is called the River Terrace. It is a nicer name. I agree. It's
now I've started calling it the porch, though, just to be.
I like the porch. I don't know. I like those names. I don't know. I feel like we can call it multiple things, but in any case, so this episode will be coming out next week. We had hoped, and this is a good lesson. This is a good lesson that ties back to something that I mentioned at the end of every single one of these programs, which is to say, we had hoped last week to release selected audio from the night market, and we will eventually release that to you. But one of the reasons that I didn't have time to get that out is, and there's very little excuse, right? Because I recorded the audio separately. We recorded the video on my phone, which did die, but it didn't die until Hovercraft started. So we got the whole Space Lounge program up until that point. Really kind of a bummer we didn't get the Hovercraft set, but then I was like, oh, it's okay though. I had the recorder. Yeah, I still got it right here. I had our special recorder there. We haven't used it in a couple of years, and recorded the whole thing. That battery lasted all the way, until the end of the Hovercraft set. And that was going to be the basis for what we released as a couple of little fun little podcast episodes recorded live. And again, like I said, we still will, but they won't be in H4n Pro quality. And the reason for that is when I plugged in the thing and I extracted the file, it was like a 4 hours, like a 2 gigabit file. It was silent. And I kept clicking through and I'm seeing no lines on the screen in the program, and I'm hearing no sounds. And I was just like, what the fuck? And this is 100% on me. I screwed it up. Like I said, we haven't used the recorder in a couple of years, and it was set to record to our 2 handheld external mics. And which weren't plugged in. They weren't there. It was set to record to microphones that didn't exist, and not the very pretty high capacity microphones that just rest on top of it, which is how it was intended to be recorded. So my bad, lost forever. At least the Hovercraft set is. The rest of the audio we are going to rip from the video files, which will just take me another couple of days. So we'll probably put that out in another week or two. We'll give it to you for Labor Day or something as a special treat.
But really, it's kind of, watch the video, because our dramatic skits all had like costumes and fabulous set design that you would not get to appreciate if you were just listening.
100%. And especially the Hallmark skit in particular is I highly recommend that you watch that visually. But the moral of the story here, though, is this kind of thing wouldn't happen if I had entrusted the recording of this event to a professional, say someone at studio117.net, our sound lord Chad, who came up on stage. You should watch the video to see him too, though, because then you can really judge him. But in terms of his audio abilities, though, he would not have recorded a 2 a 2 gigabyte blank file. There's no way. And this is why you get a sound guy. Now to be sure, we had great sound people provided by the night market. It was upstream. As most locals know, upstream, they do the sound for all major events, and they do a phenomenal job. They were extremely helpful for us, but it wasn't their responsibility to like record for us or to set up our recorder. So that's totally outside of their area. They did a phenomenal job with what was their responsibility, but
and
this
Chad's
is why
on a date.
Oh no, we wouldn't have. Yeah, I know. I wouldn't have wanted to interrupt his date either. But this is just a lesson for anybody, though. If you think you can do it yourself and it's sound related, think about going with studio117.net instead, because that's what I'm thinking now. Now that we had that experience, but in general, the night market was phenomenal, though, right? I mean, we had a pretty good time.
It was really fun. Although I feel like I prevented Sam from going to see the rest of the night market.
Was it you? I don't know if it was you.
Okay, good. I'm glad you don't feel like it was me.
No, I don't.
Yeah, we were gonna. We that was the thing. We were kind of in our place, and by the time we got off the stage, the market was in its closing hour basically, and I couldn't tear myself away from this new band that formed just for our event thing. And that's really why I didn't. I heard that
the food was out by the time
I was going to say, I heard my food choices would have been limited. And
however, I just wanted to watch the band too. That's fine.
But I heard that the vendors were amazing. I heard that it was a really good time. I heard, our good friend and our first cover artist for our Monadnock Underground's first 2 print editions, Hannah Ellingwood, was there with a lot of cool stuff in her tent. And, my kids were running around, buying stuff, doing, causing problems and things like that. They had other bands over there. It was the magical summer event that I think that we have been promising for several weeks. I don't think we overhyped the thing. And, one thing we know just from our own inclinations, our own experience, but I'm happy to say, and I don't think he'll mind me saying this, but I also know from talking to Roy, our guest in our previous episode, and the fearless leader of the Max T Makerspace, although by no means the only person who makes the night market go on, but this is just the beginning of this tradition. This is the 3rd time. This thing is just getting started, so anything that, there's always these things when, and I know this, I know Roy thinks like this. I know that we always think like this whenever we do an event ourselves, afterwards, there's always all these little things that you can think of that we could have done this, or we could have done this, or, if we had more of this, or, whatever. But every year, those things are going to be responded to and addressed. And I think that the way that this thing continues building on itself actually goes beyond those responses, because I think that it will continue to have brand new ideas and ways of thinking associated with it as well. There are, I really am happy to say, because I think that this is a little bit of a side rant, and I apologize, but I think that perhaps if we went back 2 years to the summer of 2020, I might have felt differently. I might have started to waver in my faith about this in the region. But I'm happy to say, from where I'm sitting in 2022, I have a lot of faith that there is a strong and growing group of people in this town, in this region, of course, but in Peterborough, that are really looking to innovate, looking to engender these new traditions, looking to do things that Peterborough has never done before, and in a way that is truly creatively expressive and incorporative of many different types of art. These are, I'm talking about people who have a little bit of hustle, who have imagination, who are really passionate for turning nascent ideas into manifested reality, which is, something that is very near and dear to my own heart. It's not just us. There's a lot of people out there. Roy's one of them. The people at Maxi Makerspace, they're some of them. And you will see more. So from people like us,
here,
watch out. But yeah, no, it was cool. Check out the videos on Facebook. There's actually a playlist, that contains them all. So you can see them all in one place. The same thing by the time this episode comes out, the same thing will be true of YouTube as well. So it'll be really easy for you to check out, all of the scene there. Which, really cool. Would love to hear any feedback that people in the audience have about the Space Lounge Live, and about any thoughts that people have about future events of that nature that we might want to do, because we would really like to do it again. We don't want to wait until next year's night market. And we want to potentially think about something for the late fall or early winter, that can happen indoors and be an event, just kind of based around the lounge show. So if anybody has any thoughts or ideas, or would be interested in participating in or helping to facilitate something like that, we're here for you. You know how to contact us. The info is readily available at all.
But if they don't, what's a good email address?
If they don't, you can always try DiLoretto at monadnockunderground.com. If that's too difficult, you can do Zoe at monadnockunderground.com. Sam at monadnockunderground.com.
Can't misspell Sam's name. You can misspell my name.
Misspell that. What's our other email address? Like
gomonadnock@gmail.com.
Gomonadnock@gmail.com. We take comments there as well. We do. I apologize. Some people do contact us there, and we do a pretty good job of checking that one, but not an awesome job. So we're a little bit slower on that. In fact, I'm just looking at it right now because I haven't been in there. Oh, we lost a subscriber. Well, until we meet again, Gail. Anyways, so yeah, reach out to us though. We would love to hear from you. And like I said, not to be too threatening, but if you either way, you'll be hearing from us. So one of the consequences though, actually, no, this isn't really a consequence of being gone for so long, because these aren't stories that have stacked up really. Like most of what we're going to talk about this episode has more or less come to light in the last week or so. But we have a number of significant events that you want to hear about that we're going to talk about first. And then we're going to talk about a couple of pretty big goings on, some fresh discussions in the Peterborough Facebook group that are kind of worth mentioning. After, I will say, a period of at least a month or so in which the group was maybe a little too quiet. I think I mentioned this on the last episode. In fact, it was like I know that what most people want from a group like this is like recommendations on a plumber. But the group has never been predominantly that. But for the last month, that's basically what it was. It was like lost dogs and, help me find someone to do something on my house, which is a little too boring. But there have been times in the past where I have responded to such boredom by stirring things up, and I did decline to do so in this case. I haven't had it in me. I don't know if I'm a changed man or if I'm just not in the mood, but I guess we'll perhaps find out over time. But in any case, Zoe, tell us about the big what?
Before we get into that, what am I going to tell everybody about?
Oh, I thought you were going to, I was hoping that you could tell everyone about today's big announcement, today's big launch.
Yes. Well, if you did attend the night market, then you got a little pre taste of this. But today
it was our least clean segment. Sorry, Roy.
Yes. broke a lot of promises with that segment. Today we announced the official cover, title, and pre-order price of Monadnock Underground's latest publication, Anywhere But Here, a 1980s road story by William Mullen. And that is, he did a reading of it at the night market, but we didn't have the cover there. So the cover is like the big
cover was going to be down to the line as to whether we had that cover available. And unfortunately, and it was not due to even in any way due to the artist. It was us, that I made her wait a little too long on some instructions. So we did not have the final copy at the night market. But we have it now.
We have it now.
It's a beautiful cover. Beautiful cover.
Yeah, we went back to our favorite cover artist who's done all of our books since our magazines, except for Sarah's book.
Correct, which she designed herself, of course, and that was a little bit different because it was a workbook. But yeah, all of our trade paperbacks have the same cover artist, and they have a very similar look and feel, which I'm fairly proud of. I think our artist Katerina does just an absolutely phenomenal job of bringing the vision that I described to her in the vaguest possible terms into a concrete reality that usually exceeds what it was that I envisioned in the first place.
But she nailed like the 80s brown road story vibe of this book, which I have to admit, I have not read this book. I am not doing the editing of this book.
That's true. There's only so much you can say. I
have heard pieces of it at our monthly Writers Open Mic night because Bill does often come there and read. And he's read some sections of this book unedited though. So who knows if they're still in the book or how they'll be changed. I really don't know.
Right. And frankly, that's even true of what he read the other night. So some of that will be changed, but he doesn't know that yet. But we're in the process of working on that. But for real. So this is it's a archetypal framework within which a truly unique and I think to date untold story gets spun. And, that's to say that we have been, since before On the Road, we've been talking about like getting in the car and going west and going across America and, seeking, your freedom or your fortune or seeking something, right? Seeking some promise of the American dream that may yet lie in the, whether true or not, untamed West, right? The paradise of California, again, whether true or not, right? And so again, timeless tale, right? Which to me, I'm a fan of archetypes, so I don't think that makes it bad. But the reason I think if that was all there was to it, I don't know that we would have necessarily been super interested in publishing this book. But like what makes this book interesting is that who went west in the 1980s? It's the same as asking, and of course, some of us know several people to answer this question, but it's the same as saying like who followed the Grateful Dead in the 1980s? It's like you're doing a thing that like you and everyone else is well aware is like a half dead thing. It's like a thing well past its prime. You're doing a thing later than the era in which that thing was like born and matured and why, right? So this is the story of two like 18-year-old dudes, Bill and Jack, and they're in Connecticut. And, this part is I think pretty typical, right? That you've got the ennui of the recent graduate, essentially. They don't want to stay in their hometown. There's nothing for them there. Come on, man, let's blow this joint. One of them, their dad, Jack's dad lives in Oregon and has some concrete work for them to do. And so they're like, all right, let's make a road trip out of it. And the funny thing is that Jack and Bill, they're not even like best friends before this trip. They're friends. They know each other, but they're not that tight. So they're thrust into this. Like if you've ever moved in with a significant other too soon, which I have done many times, that's kind of what this is like in that buddy comedy way, And so they set off across the land, and one of the themes that comes up again and again, and this is not a spoiler, this is a major motif of the book, and it's part of the reason for the title, is that every place they go, whether it's a campground, whether it's the house of someone that they know, or someone in some cases who even invited them there, whatever, whether it comes down from the authorities or from, in some cases, friends and family, there's no welcome for these guys anywhere, and it's set against the backdrop of just this crumbling American dream of the 1980s of Ronald Reagan. And, he addresses this kind of again and again. And, you've got these hippie kids who, by the way, have a trunk full of marijuana, and some of which they stole from a field in the Midwest. So a lot, it's cool. Like, it's not all dour. Like, along the way, they have these funny adventures where they, like I said, they stumble across a weed field. There's miraculous happenings, in the book. Sometimes their asses are saved seemingly by, I guess it's up to the reader to decide whether they could have been supernatural forces or not. But they can't there's no quarter offered to these two fine gentlemen, like, no matter where they go. And, it's a story of what they find and what they don't find. And, like I said, a road tale set in that backdrop in that decade, I don't believe has been told. And I think that the fact that it is being told by, a self-described hippie decades too late, is all the more appropriate to tell the story. It should be told by that outsider looking in, and that's what this novel is. It's very, very good. I can't wait to share it with the world. This has been a labor. Bill has been working on it for at least 2 years. He calls it 2 years. I think he's been working on it a little bit longer than that. I think maybe we've been working on it all together for 2 years at this point.
Well, I wanted to point out that we have published on Monadnock Underground a piece of it, the Indian and the Toyota and the mystery trucker. When you're talking about the
that's one of those times. If you want a little taste, we can put that in the show notes.
Yeah, but I just looked it up. We published that online in February 2021. So
yeah. So we've been working with him at least that long. Yeah. So really cool. So pre-sale is on. We can put the link to that in the show notes. The book's going to run for $25, but we've got the pre-sale going on probably until the beginning of October. We haven't nailed down the date yet, but probably the beginning of October we'll put this out. And until then, you can get 20% off and at the very cute price of $19.89. Which is the year that the book is set in. So go ahead and check that out. We just really, we did a soft launch at the night market, but we officially launched the pre-sale today. And the sales, there have been sales extending into the evening. I'm actually very excited to say. So jump on this. This is a good book. You want this on your shelf. This is, it is a truly one of a kind story. That you will not find anywhere else, and it's very well written, and it's written from the heart. I'm really, it's an honor to edit it and to publish it. So I am very much looking forward to more to come there. We'll have Bill on the program. Yeah, in fact, we've had a sale since we started recording. Nice. So lots of people are jumping on this book. I think they feel the excitement, and I hope that you do as well. So more to come there. So that's our first big announcement. Second big announcement, we've got some politics in Peterborough coming up. And I was, after our foray into the town meeting this past spring, I, to be honest, was not really expecting to dive into this fall's this fall's election season at all. But this is by request. People have come to us, and that's flattering. And I like that. And if people are looking for more from us in this area, we are here to provide. And that's why we said yes right away, and we jumped on it. So we have in the Democratic primary, which I think is September 13th, I believe, Tuesday the 13th, is the primary for Peterborough's representative to the New Hampshire State House. Now, for those of you from out of town who maybe don't know this, New Hampshire's legislature is one of the largest in the world. And it's because of the New Hampshire House of Representatives. Somewhat bizarrely, sometimes I like this, sometimes I think it's crazy, but there's like 400 or so representatives. It's some crazy number. A town like Peterborough, which only has 6,000 residents, has 2 representatives just for Peterborough. Now, I think that's great. It is, Peterborough deserves representatives. I'm not discounting that. Coming from Massachusetts, it's odd, but it's kind of cool. And so those 2 seats are up for grabs. They're currently occupied by Democrats, Peter Leishman and Ivy Van, who many of you, I'm sure, have heard of before. They are joined in this primary by young challenger Jonah Wheeler, who is, he's an activist. He works for Rights and Democracy. And he is, he's joining the fray. And I've talked to Jonah a couple of times, and we're going to, at some point, have him on this program. I think he brings a lot of very unique energy and vigor to the table. So 3-way race, a little competition. I'm told the Democratic Party themselves wants no part of a debate hosting themselves because they don't really want to get involved with a challenger coming in against incumbents. I guess they kind of can't. That's sort of what they do. They're supposed to protect incumbents, but we're going to do it instead. So we're going to have Peterborough Parlay Part 2. I wish that I could convey to you a date on this program today. We think it is going to be September 1st at 6:30 p.m. in the 1833 room in the Peterborough Town Library. If it's not,
pencil it in, but have your eraser ready.
That's right. Pencil it in, have your erase. By the time this episode comes out, we probably will know. So we can put that in the show notes too. I think it's going to be either September 1st or August 31st. But we'll get the 3 candidates together just like we did for the budget committee and the planning board in, was it May? Yeah, in May or April, whenever it was. In the spring. So we'll do a really fun debate and forum like we did there. And, so that's coming. You'll see more from us on that. We will broadcast it live, but please come out. These things are really fun. We packed the room last time. We're going to do it again. There's going to be opportunity for people from the audience to ask questions from the floor. It's going to be a good show. It's going to be a great time. But again, if you don't feel like it or whatever, it'll be broadcast. We'll live stream it. Instead.
And what's our excuse for being so Peterborough centric this time? Just because we were asked?
Yeah, I guess so. What's the
simple situation there?
Yeah, I mean, it's in some ways it's like the coverage that we wish we could do. It's just it was fairly easy for me to get in contact with the parties needed for this Peterborough thing, and it would be harder. But if anybody ever wants us to come in and do this, and you can coordinate between parties and you can, put it in front of us and say, hey, it's these candidates. We could do it at this place and all that stuff. We will do it, but we just can't run every single one of these down, unfortunately. But maybe one day we'll have, designated correspondents, that will kind of take care of that for us. But in any case, Peterborough, on the Republican side, we have 2 primary candidates for the 2 spots. So no race over there. I don't know who both of the candidates are. I know Rachel Maidment is one of them. I'm not sure who the other person is. So we are not intentionally, we're not just like being Peterborough here and, saying that the only race is between the Democrats. It ain't like that, guys. We actually are, we on this program don't take partisan sides. Sam, to paraphrase Michael Jordan, like Republicans buy houses too, right? So we don't have a party line on this, but I kind of put some feelers out on the Republican side. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of interest in having a debate when there isn't a contest. We do plan, and you heard it here, this is 100% the intent. after the primary and before the general election, though, whoever the candidates are on the Democratic side, we do want to have them back for a debate inclusive of the Republicans. So that'll be a great show. And maybe we don't know. This is a bit more of a stretch, but maybe if we can pull it off, we'll try to get a general election debate for the Senate, which I think we're District 9. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure we live in District 9.
Sounds like a number that rings a bell.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think we're in Senate District 9 in Peterborough. And
let me ask the producer here.
Yeah, check that out. District 9, which is a bit, so the Senate, so it's funny, we have this gigantic house of 400 people or whatever, and the Senate's there's 35 senators or something like that. So Senate districts are much bigger. However, I think it would be good, whoever the candidates end up being for that race, and no doubt they do some campaigning in Peterborough, but it would be great to kind of formally bring them before the people of Peterborough. I think in that district, which certainly extends all the way to Bedford, so it's a big, weird gerrymandery district. Do you want
to hear what it includes?
Let's hear the towns.
Bedford, Dublin, Fitzwilliam, Greenfield, Hancock, Jaffrey, Lineborough, Mount Vernon, New Boston, Peterborough, Richmond, Sharon, Temple, and Troy.
It's a really weird. That's a weird district.
That's weird.
It's a weird friggin' district.
That's got some of these.
Yeah. But in that district, Peterborough is a formidable nexus that I think deserves its own special event. And so we intend to try to, that's our stretch goal, is to try to get a Senate debate as well. But I think that the State House debate in the general election is a lock. I think that will definitely go on. So kind of exciting. That's an exciting little thing. I definitely, I think that with a challenger coming on with two very well established and, dare I say, very popular incumbents, I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. And I think it'll be an interesting race. And it's so please stay tuned. Please come out to that. You don't want to miss it. And again, we'll put it online in the event that you can't make it. And then lastly,
What's that?
Would you like to? You did edit this book.
Yes. Assuming that our parlay is on the 1st, the very next night. We will be having finally the official release party for the UPLEVEL Self-Healing Workbook. Part of the delay is that we sold out of our first two orders. Almost we had no books to sell
very quickly
at a release party. We've finally gotten a third nice big box of them, and we have copies to offer at this release party. I mean, I'm assuming anything could happen in the next 2 weeks.
Anything could happen in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, the idea is for Sarah to sign books for you.
If you at First Friday at Shakti Healing Arts in Depot Square. We've got rumors of wine. We've got rumors of meditation exercises. We've got rumors of just a cozy, fun vibe.
Maybe some cheese.
I think all these rumors will end up being true.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be a nice time. And if, hey, I encourage people to go, even if you're just curious about Shakti Arts, because I've said this before, I think, and I say it to Sarah every time I go there, but that is a place with an aura, with a palpable atmosphere. When you step in there, you can viscerally feel that this is a place that has, a very specific purpose behind it. It's a place where spirit is tended to and where healing occurs. And like I said, you can feel that just from walking in, never mind if you actually do anything there, which hopefully you do. So we're very excited to have that in-person event and part of First Friday. That's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
We'll have to do a live video or something in case anybody isn't there, just so they can see what they're missing, Yeah.
Did you mention it earlier that Sarah did the pranayama exercise at a night market?
I might not have, but we do have video of that.
Yeah. So
which I encourage people to check out.
That she opened up the Space Lounge at the night market with like a really cool breathing exercise that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
So you can check that out on the video. There might be some more like that at the release party. I don't know what her plan is for that.
It really got things started on the right note. I think we all were very settled and present and embodied and relaxed. We were ready for a lounge on a Friday night.
Yeah,
on a
definitely.
library
It's
porch.
just like cleared out any kind of like pre-show jitters for me.
Oh, totally. Yeah, me too. Yeah, it was real nice. So a lot of big stuff coming up. Zoe, you and I were kind of talking about this earlier, but it's like, I am struggling a little bit with the adjusting to the idea that summer's on its way out. I mean, yes, somebody out there is immediately going to be like, Chris, the equinox when fall begins isn't until September 22nd, which, yes, I realize, but we're already at the point where it's dark outside, it's cool out, et cetera, et cetera. It's coming to a close. But as the days go on and as I see the way unfolding before us, it is increasingly difficult for me to be disappointed when there are so many cool things that are happening at the tail end of summer and the early fall. So that's cool.
Yeah. It's just the cold came on pretty suddenly.
Suddenly. We went from heat wave to like 50 degrees at night. Like like one day to the next, like a switch flip.
I think that's what really got me.
I wasn't prepared. Yeah, I feel like that heat wave is often like maybe a little bit earlier, when that comes around. And so
early July, I feel like July 4th seems is like often one of the hottest days. It's like one of those 90-degree stretches there. So the light has been changing, but when it was cold at night, that hit me hard.
That's right. Exactly. So on to some vibrant discussion in the Peterborough Facebook group. The first one concerns, it's become two posts because somebody, in a way that I can only charitably describe as unvirtuous, made a second post on the same topic, just to dig it in. But the first post had the comments shut down. I had some comments deleted. They were defensive comments, I should say. I wasn't willing to tolerate being called names, and some people didn't like my response. But I don't know. That's always my response to that sort of thing. And the post was written by a nice guy, a nice local dude, Michael Ambrosini, who simply posted in what I thought was a mostly polite way, a pretty polite way. It wasn't negative or derogatory or attacking or snide or sarcastic. He was being sincere and straightforward. And he simply said that he thought that perhaps the Post and Beam Brewery on Grove Street, our main commercial stretch, should mow its lawn more.
And he himself is a landscaper, is that right?
Yes, I believe so. Someone at least accused him of that, but I don't know firsthand. I don't know Michael.
I thought he was citing his like professional expertise.
Oh, no, I think he was just saying he was citing it from an aesthetic point of view.
Oh, okay.
And
this wasn't like a professional offense.
Yeah. And so this guy was really jumped on, in a way that, older folks in this town don't usually get attacked in the Facebook group unless they've truly said something offensive. And that's really what I want to talk about here, is not so much the grass at Post and Beam specifically, because I don't care very much about that. Zoe said she went by it today and it actually looks mostly mowed. I haven't been by there in a few days. It's not something that was top of mind for me. It's not a problem that I saw that was in immediate need of being remedied. In
I
principle,
didn't drive by just to check on it, just for the record.
Oh yeah, she had business of some other kind. I wasn't accusing her.
Going to the post office.
It wasn't in response to this post.
It was not. I just wanted everyone to know that.
Yeah, but I think that in general, in principle, I think that the idea of keeping all of the properties on Grove Street in a doesn't have to be uniform, but within relatively the same parameters of grooming standards, I think is very reasonable, especially for a town that counts on visitors, outside visitors. I'm not saying Post and Beam looked awful or anything like that, but if it was, doesn't sound like it is now, but if it was very unkempt and very unmowed, it is next to two of our beautiful parks. It is itself a historic downtown brick building, and it would look better with manicured lawn. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now, before anybody jumps down my throat, it doesn't have to be like golf course turf. It can be clover. It should just be green, and it should be relatively short, is all I'm saying. It should be possible to walk on it and sit on it. And even if they don't want people doing that, it should look like it is possible to do that, because that matches the look and feel of the downtown. And much as sometimes people want to either be in denial about this or to just straight up deny this, whatever, Peterborough is an upper middle class town. Wanting something like this is not unusual. It is standard, in fact, in a town like this. But regardless of the merits of the request itself, the criticisms that came at poor Mike came from two main directions. One was the bees. I'll get to the bees in a minute. One is from the people who want to believe that they are saving the world by saving bees in the middle of basically like the world's fastest growing forest. But I'll get back to that in a minute. The other, though, was some varying degree of offense with regard to calling out a local business on Facebook. And I want to address that one first, because I think that the way that we think about these things, and we straight up parodied this on this past Friday night. There's video of it. You can see this is not a new thought for me or for us. But a small business isn't something sacrosanct. It isn't something that you need to like defend, to quote a line from our play, with your life. It isn't something that is beyond criticism, and it isn't virtuous by the mere fact that it exists. That isn't how it works. They are, and there's a lot of people out there that I see talking from a small business perspective, but like, I'm much more interested in the consumer's perspective. And there's a lot more consumers than there are business owners, and the business owners, if they please the consumers, will be able to continue doing the business. We don't need to bow down to the business owners in hopes that they bless us consumers with their wares. That's not how commerce works, guys, and, we I know, Christ, in Peterborough, this might be a controversial thing to say. And I'm not even usually the kind of guy who says this sort of thing, but nominally in this society, we support free enterprise. And, part of that means that if a business isn't, satisfactory, that, it should give way to a different business. That's how it works, whether they're small or not small. That's how business. Some people don't understand the tree, obviously. Sorry, just a little inside joke. But now, to be clear, I like Post and Beam. It's the best beer in town. Okay, I don't go there a lot because I don't drink a lot of beer, but it's a great place. The owner's very nice. They make good beer. It's a well-run establishment. It does very well. I'm very happy for them. I wish them well. I have no beef whatsoever with Post and Beam. I think it's a great establishment. I like it. It's awesome. I think they're great. I don't really give a fuck if they mow their lawn or not that much, but my point is to say that it's not out of bounds for someone in the Peterborough Facebook group to suggest that perhaps they should mow their lawn. That's not out of bounds. That's a perfectly legitimate thing to raise. We talk about the IDG building like every 2 weeks, which is frankly on a state highway. It's on 101. Who gives a shit? This is our main walking commercial area on Grove Street. It is valid to have and to express an opinion on how it looks, regardless of whether you own the business or anything else. That's a valid thing. And I want to also specifically address the idea that like somehow it's wrong to bring this to the group instead of going to the small business owner privately. Now, I think that there are certain cases where it's probably better to go to the small business owner privately. Now, like something like a couple examples I would think of, like if you had a really bad experience with a clerk, behind a counter, they were really bad to you in some way, okay? Or let's say you had a really terrible meal at a restaurant. Now, to me, this is just me. I think the best response to both of those things is just to go about your day. No further action is required. You don't actually have to call somebody or get something done, to do, bitch to your friends, something like that. I do tend to agree. Like if I had I went out to Bantam the other night and I had a really, really wonderful meal, right? It was very nice, very great place, right? Good food. If I had a bad meal, I wouldn't be saying that on this podcast. I wouldn't say it in the Peterborough group because I understand that in making and serving food, there are variances, there are things go wrong, something might have happened. And I don't want, hundreds of people to see this and decide the next time they're going out to dinner not to go to this restaurant because I badmouth them because of one unrepresentative thing, right? And same thing with somebody behind a counter or something like that, Yeah, in those cases, if you must be heard, if you want to feel seen and heard and shit, call a manager, call an owner or something like that. Don't drag that out to the Facebook group. But like general opinions about, how things look, which again, this is from a consumer perspective and not just a consumer perspective in this case, but a citizen's perspective, because we are talking about the main drag downtown. And yes, perhaps we don't all own Post and Beam. It is a private enterprise, not a public entity, but we all in theory have a stake in generally how the downtown looks if we like downtown commerce. That's just how it goes. I think it's perfectly reasonable to bring that to the public, especially for reasons of seeing whether or not you are the only one who feels that way. If you're, let's say that post had gone a different way and like 50 people were like, yeah, it's an eyesore, it's terrible, you got to take care of it, whatever, that would be much more impactful than one random dude calling up Post and Beam and being like, mow your lawn. That would be a really strange phone call, honestly. I don't know how that would be received, So something like that, I think, is completely fair game. He wasn't rude. He didn't bash the business. He didn't say anything out of line. He just suggested perhaps that they should mow their lawn. The other thing that now I have to talk about again is the goddamn bees. Guys, the bees are not keeping us alive. Okay. And this is something that is true of the bee issue. And it's true of several other issues, which for my own safety, I'm not even going to get into on the air here, but there's a lot of issues out right now that like have come to pass really very recently over the past like 5 years or so, 10 at most, that were not assumptions before. And now among a certain set of people, these are things that you must believe, as if we all got together and talked about it and agreed that we now have this knowledge, and not just knowledge, but have taken a position, because there's always something ideological associated with these things and not just factual. So case in point is this subject. The assumption now is that we are all doing everything that we can to help the bees, which are imminently dropping dead and are imminently going to make us all die because of their absence.
Except, no, you finish. Sorry.
Yes, let me just finish the train to say that, again, I think it's perfectly valid if your position and your opinion is we should have more wildflowers and that you hate lawns and that you want there to be more, pollinating plants just floating about, and that you like that, and that you believe that it's a net good to increase the bee population, specifically in the Monadnock region, and that's fine. That is a perfectly acceptable position. I don't share it, but it's an acceptable position to have. What is not acceptable is somehow, again, demanding that everyone agree with you on this, acting like people who don't share this assumption, again, which we didn't get together and vote on and say that we all agree on this and that we're all on board on this thing, that if we don't agree with it, we are somehow immoral, bad people who hate animals and all life on Earth. Furthermore, and this will be the last part of this, the other part of it is, in order to make that case, you need to be able to make that case without lying about the fact that if we don't do what you say, we're all going to die. Because we are not going to die. None of the human food supply depends upon bees or any other pollinator. Have you ever looked at a farm? Which part of the farming process, which we've been engaged in for 12,000 fucking years at minimum, which part of that process involves the farmer sitting there praying for the bees to come by? Otherwise, the food isn't going to grow. None of the food that we eat and none of the food that the animals we eat depends on artificial pollination. Zero. Like, you're talking about fucking raspberries, guys. Which again, I love raspberries, but we are not going to go extinct. All life on Earth is not going to die if some of these berries are less common. That's simply a lie. And everyone just assumes it based on, I don't know what, but anybody who knows anything about the human food supply and the food chain knows we are not dependent upon the bees. And I just throw one more thing in there, which is to say that we, like I alluded to earlier, we live in a giant forest, like one of the biggest forests in the world. It's woods. We live in the woods. This isn't the place that's killing the bees. This isn't the place where there's too many lawns. There's lots of places and lots of food for the bees everywhere without a little spot on Grove Street. No, none of you are saving the world. Fuck off. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm glad I let you get that out without interrupting you. But I just wanted to add, I know I've written on Monadnock Underground, and I've talked on this program before about my thoughts and feelings about invasive species. And one of the ones that's about to bloom is Japanese knotweed, which is like one of the most hated invasive species for the invasive species haters. And it is like a really important late nectar source for bees in this region because it blooms so copiously at a time of year when not a lot else is blooming. So like throw that into the mix. And
that bees and invasive species destruction is at odds. Their heads are going to explode.
That's my thought.
I'm seriously worried about them now.
I think about that every year when the Japanese knotweed blooms.
Like, by the way, you pricks, like who want to just make me out to be this evil man who wants all the bees to die, which I don't, but like my lawn is like maybe 60% grass. Okay. It's filled with all those green things that you tell me to plant. Okay. I didn't plant it, but that's how it is. And I'm fine with it. I'm not ripping it up and putting grass seed down. I like it. It's cool this way. I have a lot of flowering plants too. I've got this Rose of Sharon that's got more bees flying into it than like Putnam Park and Post and Beam combined. Okay. So I'm doing more for the bees than you are. So shut up. God, I hate this subject. I wish we didn't have to keep coming back to it, but it's terrible. But clean up the discourse in general, right? Like stop, like people are allowed, like even if you don't like them, even if the opinions seem like borderline Republican, like people are allowed to think them and they're allowed to say them. And like even in Peterborough, like it's allowed to have a contrary opinion to like what you think the assumption ought to be. And so
we know there are at least 2 Republicans in Peterborough because they're running for the state rep. So
exactly right. Yep. No, it's true. They do exist. They do exist. And yes. So anyway, there was another post yesterday, later in the day, in which I did not, fortunately, find myself again on the wrong side of the mob. But from the sounds of it, there is on Monday, this will happen before this episode comes out, on Monday the 22nd, coming before the planning board in Peterborough is a site plan for, at 241 Union Street, I think it's 34 unit apartment building. Now, this is really, I saw this and I was like, ooh, this should be interesting to see how this happens, because, the person posting it they were in a butter and they were obviously very mad about it. But housing is a pretty touchy subject, and it's pretty rare that a housing development of this size comes before Peterborough. And guys, I've said on this program that I expect to see things like this development happening in Jaffrey. I've seen them in Ringe, and that's why I call especially places like Ringe, the future, because I think they're going to be open to these types of development in a way that we perhaps are not. But based on our proclamations and our frequent laments, our weeping, our ripping of hair and gnashing of teeth on the housing issue, we should, I imagine there's some people out there who think that we should be paying this developer to do this, if you were to go by those prior discussions.
It's 20% workforce housing too.
Yes, which we should be clear about this, though, because people do get confused often, and I might not get the exact definition right, but it's important to understand that workforce housing does not have to be affordable. And I know that sounds contrary, but workforce is determined by the median salary in the place where you live. So in an expensive town like Peterborough, workforce housing is not Harlow's worker housing. It's not really even New Hampshire ball bearing worker housing. It's single work from home tech worker housing, potentially.
But it's still 20% that are going to be rented for less than the other 80%.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying this as a bad thing. I just want people to understand the facts here, because some people do hear workforce and they assume that 20% of these are going to be 2-bedroom apartments for $1,000 a month. And no one's going to rent. No one's going to do that. That's not on the table. But to be clear, I think this is good. I think we should do this. And I think a lot of people started chiming in, to that effect. The original poster was claiming that this would turn a quiet street into a heavily trafficked, busy area. And I think it was, our friend Roy over at Max T who kind of commented, Union Street is kind of it's one of our busier streets already, and it's dense and there's businesses. It's not purely residential. He's like, this isn't a terrible place for something like this, because somebody's always going to be mad, right? No matter where you put an apartment building. Yeah. And
there's already a lot of condos and duplexes and multifamily stuff on that street anyway, right?
There's auto mechanics. There's a playground. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of stuff that isn't single family homes in quiet cul-de-sacs or whatever. For everything that everyone's been talking about, right? Everyone has been saying, we want density, right? We want something that's on town water and sewer. We want something that's already in a busy part of town. So it pisses off fewer people, right? This, and I've been saying no one's going to do this. No one's going to, I have to say, I stand corrected. I think it's great that somebody is. I didn't want it to be the case that no one was going to do it. I am pleasantly surprised that someone is willing to do this. And I think it's good for the future of the town. I really do. We need more places for people to live. It's I don't even want to get into the calculus of no one will be around to work at our restaurants and all this stuff, because we can debate that. I don't think that's a settled fact, but when I see, and I think it's eased up a little bit, but when I see what we've seen over the last 2 years, which is that if you are a person who wants to move to this town from somewhere else, you might not have any options. There's been times when there's almost no houses for sale. Not so much lately. That's changed a bit. But there's been times when there's basically no rentals for anybody of any kind, that you can actually get your hands on, and if one opens up, it goes through a realtor and it goes to someone that realtor knows through a personal connection, and it gets scooped up in a few hours. It's fast, I don't think that that's a healthy, long-term, tenable situation for any town. That, just as a bare fact, apropos of nothing else, right? Just the fact that if someone wants to move here, they might not be able to. We should try to correct that. That shouldn't be the case. It's not to say that we want to double our population, but we can't close off the town to new arrivals altogether. And the only way to change that, given the demographics of our day and the housing stock of the state of New Hampshire, is to build. And you have to build something big. You can't just do in-law apartments. You can't just do little 4-unit condos. You have to do something big. And that's what I commented on the thread. I said, look, guys, build, baby, build. Let's do this. We talk about housing all the time. Let's let them build the housing. And only something big can make a dent in the situation, like I just said. Someone's always going to be mad. Let's look at the bigger picture, though. This could be good for all of us. And again, none of us wants the neighborhood that we bought a house in to change in any way, right? None of us wants that. But none of us are promised that. That's not a reasonable expectation, especially when you live in the dense part of town. That's not reasonable at all. You should think that, given the way the property keeps going up, that it's quite likely that somebody might build something new near you. So again, it's in the right place. And my feeling on it is simply that housing is such a concern for us. We must try this. And maybe it will ruin, maybe it will kill the town. Maybe the town will die. If we have both the IDG building rotting on 101 and a new apartment complex on Union Street, that might just be the end of Peterborough. I doubt it. I doubt it. Maybe it will be a major calamity. There's people on this thread who are claiming that this is going to ruin the property values on homes on like 5 different streets. Like their homes are just worthless now. And I don't know, Sam, maybe a little bit something about how home values don't just drop to zero in any case. Maybe they have a valid concern in some way, but probably not all of those different spiderwebbing neighborhoods are all ruined by the construction of this development. And I'll say from personal experience, I've talked about this before. We've made many jokes about it. No offense, not to be ageist, but the Summer Hill, the assisted living facility, is right next door to me, right? They have at least 60 parking spots over there, probably more. They have staff that come and go all hours of the day and night. They have 1 million residents. They have visitors. They have guests. Do you know how often they're literally next door? They're the next lot over. Do you know how often I think about them or get bothered by them or are stuck in traffic because of them and all their cars? 0 times. Never. They don't, but sometimes I can go out on my porch late at night and there's like some workers leaving their job that are having a conversation. Like if you're the kind of person who's going to be offended by hearing voices at your house that don't belong to your family, I think that's neurotic personally. But then, I guess that wouldn't be for you. But, for a reasonable person, the existence of other people like through a bunch of trees or whatever, it's not going to ruin your life. It's not going to ruin your quality of life. I promise you, it's not. But if it does, if it ruins everyone's quality of life, I think we need to go through this experience to learn that. And if we go through this and we see that building new housing destroys us, then I will agree. I will change my position and I will say, let's not build anymore. Let's not do it again. But I think we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to the future residents of this town. Perhaps if one wanted to be dramatic, we might say we owe it to our children to try this and see what happens. And if we're not willing to do that, I don't want to talk about housing anymore. We should consider it a settled matter and that the position of the residents of this town is that we don't want any. We don't want it. We don't want any. And that, again, just like the other things I've talked about, it's okay for people to have that position. It is, even if it's not my position, and I don't like it, but it's perfectly okay for someone to believe that Peterborough should not grow anymore, that it should remain and perhaps become even more so purely single family homes, that it should get a little bit sleepier, that it should get quieter. That's an opinion. You can have it, but say it. Say that that's your opinion. You don't want to build anything. You don't want to change zoning to let people have in-law parking. You don't want to do anything. Just have that as your political position because it is. Own it. Live it, But if not, I think we have an obligation to give this a try. Show up. I don't know if I'm going to be there, but I have a big day on Monday, but show up on Monday if you really care about this. At the planning board, probably going to be pretty packed. Show up early. Look online to find out what time it is. I don't know off the top of my head. It's going to be in the past by the time you listen to this, so I'm not sure why I'm giving you this advice. But we're not going to put it in the show notes because it will already have happened. But in our next episode, we will more than likely discuss what happened.
Yeah. I don't know what else there is to add to your great speeches tonight.
I am filled with speeches today. Apparently, feeling very passionate about these issues. It's good to see good discussion in the Peterborough group again. Yeah, but look, we are at like an hour and 7, and we were going to talk about police logs and missed connections because we have missed those for a while. But let's save those. Let's put those in our back pockets.
Yeah,
we'll come back next week. We'll do that again. I think this is an exciting episode. There's a lot going on all of a sudden, which is cool. I like a lot going on. I'm not a sleepy town sort of fellow. Not that I want it to be a city, I'll just say that. Just one more little speech I'll throw in here. And this, I think, applies to both of these subjects, right? Because a lot of times in discussions about like the nature of Peterborough and what it should be, if you make a statement that you want X in town, like some kind of business that isn't a small business or some kind of form of entertainment that we don't have now, it doesn't matter what it is, anything, right? A very common response to you is, we're not a city. We're not going to be a city. You should go to the city if you want those things. And now sometimes, like if someone wants, emergency dry cleaners that's like 24/7, or something like that. Yeah, right. You should live in a city. You know what I mean? Like if you want a lot of 24-hour anything, you should live in a city. If you want Ubers and taxi cabs, they're probably not going to be able to make money out in Peterborough. You probably want to live in a city, right? But like most businesses and forms of entertainment, like can and do exist in small towns. And there is something in between where we are now and like New York City, believe it or not. Like there's a whole world in between those things. Just like there are in between areas between, kill all lawns and don't manicure anything and, suburbanized turf everything. You know what I mean? Like you can believe something in the middle of, I want to give people permission to do that because it seems like a lot of people don't want that to be an option, don't think it's an option. But truly it is. Like almost none of these things are binary, you don't have to pick one thing or another. Think what you want to think, it's really okay. And, maybe I hate it. Maybe I even make fun of you for it at some point in time. So what? If you have an opinion, you should be willing to stand there and, say it and take that for it. And I will, even if I make fun of you, I will defend your right, to take a position as long as you're really taking one. I will always have your back on that. And so with that, another episode is in the books. We talked a little bit about it at the beginning, but of course, for your sound needs, don't try to do it yourself. You know, our wonderful sound lord and producer, Chad Patterson, has an operation at studio117.net. They can help you with your, you know, recording, mixing, balancing, equipment setup, whatever needs that you have, as long as it's not at a date and time in which Chad's band, the premier dad rock band of New England, Dad Rock Summer 2022, Down by 10. Which has had gigs basically every weekend all over the place. In the fall, they will be back in Milford. I'll get you a date on that as it gets closer, because it would be nice if some of us went over to Milford and did a little
Moms in Milford.
Moms in Milford.
Dad Rock at Moms.
Dad Rock at Moms, giving Chad a little support. So nice. Special thanks to Chad. Thanks to all of you for listening. Big thanks to everyone who helped put on the night market and everyone who came out and saw us at the night market. That was a blast. That was a truly special night. I'm going to remember it forever, and I hope that you do as well. Okay? Until we meet again, I've given you plenty of things to choose from. Take some good advice, you know, whether it's mine or somebody else's, for the love of God. And we will see you next time in the Space Lounge. Have a great night.